welcome to our Veterans Day Assembly. I am Andrew Vormans, a member of the Tomahawk Middle School Student Council. Our theme this year is Honor and Patriotism. Each year we come together to celebrate all our armed forces, including the American Reserves and Guards. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and the high school band for playing American Heritage March.
Hello, my name is Toby Scott. I am also a member of the Tomahawk Middle School Student Council. Andrew and I will be your masters of the ceremonies today. Please welcome Miss Boulder, our Tomahawk Middle School principal.
Good morning, everyone. It is my honor and privilege to welcome all of you to our annual Veterans Day program. A lot of hard work and time goes into planning this event, and I want to begin by recognizing all of the people from multiple organizations who have given their time to make this event possible. Please direct your attention to the back of the program. This committee is made up of volunteers from our local veterans organizations and the School District of Tomahawk. Committee members that are in attendance today, please stand if you are able and be recognized. Veterans Day is a special day that is dedicated for us to pay our respects and honor those who have served. We come together to celebrate and honor our veterans for their patriotism, love of country, and willingness to serve and sacrifice for the common good. So it is very fitting that our theme for today's program is honor and patriotism. Being a veteran is an honor that only a small percentage of Americans can claim, and it is a badge of courage that unites across all ages, regardless of background. On behalf of the School District of Tomahawk, we want to convey our most heartfelt thanks to those who have served and answered our nation's call. We are forever grateful to the brave men and women who, through their sacrifice, make our way of life possible. Thank you for attending, and we hope that you all enjoy today's program.
Please stand in silence for the presentation of colors, showing respect by facing the flag and saluting or holding your right hand over your heart. Stay standing while the chamber choir sings, and please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Veterans present arms.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Say
Guard. Take your seats.
Please join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. The chamber choir will now sing in Flanders Fields.
Our piece this morning, In Flanders Fields, specifically remembers the fallen, but it's also closely connected to this day, to November 11th, because it was written during World War II. The writer of the lyrics, John McCrae, was a physician in the Canadian Forces. He served in France and Belgium during World War I. During the Second Battle of Ypres, his unit suffered heavy casualties. People who were not just fellow members of his unit, but people who were his close personal friends. And so he wrote these lyrics to remember them, and this is what we will be singing for you all this morning.
We would now like to welcome Mr. Jay Morrison, United States Army veteran.
Good morning. Hey, before I begin, I've heard that song a lot of times. That was incredible. And that means something for those of us that have served in combat and have lost friends of ours. So let's give a round of applause for the choir. They did an absolutely fantastic job. Everybody did an incredible job except for Nick. He was a little off key. I'm just kidding. Nick's a great young man. He's a great young man. And before I begin, I think it'd be remiss if I didn't point out a couple things. One, it's important to understand the difference between the three major holidays that celebrate our servicemen and women. Today's Veterans Day, and it celebrates anyone that's worn the uniform. And that blankets, not to go against our wonderful principle, but a significant number of almost 7% of all adults have served in the military. We also have Armed Forces Day, which celebrates those that are currently serving. And for all of us that have worn the uniform, the most solemn of which of the 3 days, of course, is Memorial Day. And that is the day when we all take a moment and celebrate the lives lost by those patriots that gave the final sacrifice in love of their country. But this is not Memorial Day. And I look at this as a celebration. This is a celebration of freedom. This is a celebration of those of us that joined the armed services without political affiliation or political reasonings, simply because we know that this is the finest nation on earth. It is not without its own flaws, but nonetheless is a beacon of freedom, democracy, and a beacon of light for so many that are impoverished or indentured across this world. Lastly, I just want to recognize our veteran service organizations out here that always do a fantastic job. I am a member of the VFW, not a good one, because I split my time with these young hooligans up here wearing the Boy Scout uniform, like Nick and my Boy Scout and Drew. But they do a fantastic job representing our armed services. And we just lost one of our own in Jerry. And if you don't know who Jerry is, talk to one of the VFW members. He'll be missed. And like any colonel, I can say very little with a lot of words, so I'm sorry. I don't mean to be rambling on. Anyways, good morning. Good morning, Tomahawks. Good morning, Tomahawks. Good morning. Hey, listen, you're not in class, right? Isn't that awesome? All right, fine, go back to class. No, hey, listen, this is a celebration. I look at it as a celebration, and yes, that celebration is always with a slight remembrance of, and never slight remembrance, but a remembrance of those that can't be here. But I look at it as a celebration of our service, celebration of the service that I was glad to be a part of. But when I ask all of you, and I'm going to address my comments to the young men and women in the audience, our students here at Tomahawk School, when you think of a veteran, what do you think of? Is it something that you see out of Call of Duty? And look, I'm not here to bang on Call of Duty, because I love Call of Duty. I'm horrible at it. I'm better than Trey, but I still am really bad at it, okay? But if your picture of what a veteran looks like is Call of Duty, sorry to say, you're going to be horribly disappointed. The veteran is what you have when you take off the uniform. The veteran is what happens once you no longer serve in an active duty fashion. The veteran is different outside of his uniform or her uniform, but not entirely different. To understand what a veteran is, or what makes up a veteran, you have to understand it's about service, and it's about service to something larger than yourself. And service, that means to truly give up something of yourself, something that you hold dear. Now, before I continue, I'm going to bring up the three people that mean the most to me, and that is my beautiful wife, Rachel Morrison, who you may recognize haunting these halls as the kindergarten teacher. She's the mean one. Come on up here, Rachel. She's only mean at home. She's sweet to her students, though. And my big knucklehead over here, Jerome Trey J-Dog Jr., did I get there right? Trey Morrison, come on up here. And certainly not the shortest anymore, not the least. You know him as Lukey Pookie. He's also a proud member of the 7th grade here at Tomahawk. Luke Morrison, come on up here. And I hope you guys have rehearsed your parts. You know him? Okay. So what is a veteran? What does it take to be a veteran? Well, you got to give something up. Would you give up your family? In my life, there are 3 people that I love more than anything: Rachel, Trey, and Luke. I can't imagine a life without them, and they're the reason I do everything I do each and every day, except for the bad stuff I do. That I do because I'm a knucklehead. But they're the reason I do everything good in my life, and I can't imagine living a life without them. But I've said goodbye to them multiple times for years at a time. I've said goodbye to my wife, who I've been married to for 22 years, for almost 4 years, to go to operational deployments throughout this world, never knowing if I was going to come back. I recall my last deployment when I left for operations in Iraq and Syria, and I wasn't sure exactly what my role was going to be. And I didn't know how involved or intense it was going to be. And I didn't know if, when I left on that airplane, if I'd come back on that airplane in a seat or somewhere else. And Trey said something to me when I was about ready to get on the flight that buckled my knees and made me for once wish I wasn't going. But I left. And I came back because I was lucky. And I did do my duty because I'm a veteran. Would you give up your faith in God? Sergeant Alvin York, a troubled drinker who found himself on the wrong side of the law due to many drunken fights, found redemption in God. A devout member of the Church of Christ, he gave up his violence and his drinking in service to God. Drafted in 1914 at the beginning of 1914 in World War I, he refused to pick up a weapon, but also refused a religious exclusion that would have gotten him out of his draft. Conflicted to the core, he also refused, even though he was drafted into the infantry, he refused a non-combat role, fearing that someone else would have to take his place and sacrifice their life. After much internal struggle and spiritual counsel, he accepted that violence, in the eyes of tyranny, may not be a sin. Sergeant York earned the Medal of Honor by single-handedly defeating a machine gun position and saving countless lives of his unit in a battle in World War I. He came back to continue to serve his community for many, many years. He is a veteran. Would you give up $10 million? That's what Pat Tillman did. If you don't know who Pat Tillman is, incredibly courageous story. Pat Tillman, a collegiate outstanding defender, got a contract with then the Phoenix Cardinals, or whoever they are now. Now they're the Arizona Cardinals, but at the time they were under a different city. But Pat Tillman was a starting safety and was offered a $9 million contract on top of the contract he had already signed to go play for another team. And you know what he did? Traded in his NFL uniform and served the military. After watching the Twin Towers go down, he joined the Army Rangers and gave his life in Afghanistan on a hill in which he was awarded the Silver Star. A great friend of mine, Bart Hensler, Colonel, he's still continuing to serve, was his company commander in 275 Ranger Battalion. And I have it on his authority that Pat, not only those actions on that day, but his days leading up to were instrumental in the unit's cohesiveness and the fact that many of the men made it out of that deployment alive. Pat Tillman is a veteran. Would you give up your life As a member of 1st Battalion, 15th Infantry, 2nd Brigade, 3rd Infantry Division, Staff Sergeant Alwyn Cash, an infantry squad leader, was on patrol in his Bradley fighting vehicle on 17 October 2005 in Iraq. Suddenly, his vehicle was rocked by an explosion. His vehicle had been hit by an improvised explosive device. The fuel cell of that Bradley had been ruptured, and it filled the vehicle with fuel. Sergeant Cash was covered with fuel, his uniform soaked, but he managed to jump from the burning vehicle that had just caught fire. As ammunition began to cook off, Sergeant Cash found himself momentarily in safety, being away from the vehicle. But once he collected himself, he realized that every member of his squad was still in the vehicle. Sergeant Cash re-entered the vehicle and saved 6 members of his squad. When it was all said and done, he had burns over 70% of his body. He was medically evacuated and placed in an induced coma to hopefully allow him to recover. Sergeant Cash would momentarily wake from his medically induced coma, and rather than ask a single question about his own well-being, he asked one question. How are my boys? Sadly, Staff Sergeant Cash succumbed to his wounds about 3 weeks later, and he passed away 17 years ago this week on November 8th. For his actions, he was initially awarded the Silver Star. But thank God for a couple of my wonderful friends and mentors, not the least of which General Gary Brito, who was his battalion commander and fought to ensure that Staff Sergeant Cash would ultimately be awarded the highest decoration in our military service, the Medal of Honor, which was just awarded by President Joe Biden about 18 months ago. He received the Medal of Honor finally. He is a veteran. And look, I don't pretend to be the type of hero that to the likes of York, Tillman, or Cash, they gave all. They gave everything. There is no finer sentiment or finer sacrifice than any person can do than to lay their life down for other people. I walked away from my family multiple times, fully realizing that I would never see them again. But I was lucky. I did. Sergeant York had to question his faith and his relationship in God. Pat Tillman gave up $10 million to become a soldier, and Staff Sergeant Cash gave up his life for his boys. I guarantee you, if those three were here right now, they would tell you they're not heroes. I would fight them for that, because they are. But one thing I think they would agree with, and I would agree with, none of us served because we wanted to be heroes. We all wanted to be part of something we believed in, something larger than ourselves. This Veterans Day, take a moment and realize that old saying about our servicemen and women, all gave some and some gave all. And ask yourself, what did they give up to serve? I had my thoughts written down today, and I saw a quote from a buddy of mine, Lieutenant Colonel retired Brian Smith, on Facebook. And he said his response normally when people thank him for his service is, "You're worth it." And his answer is simply this. He didn't serve for himself. He didn't serve for advancement or glory. He served for all of you. And I like that. If you want to honor me, if you want to honor them, and you want to honor the 19 million of our American veterans in our nation, like Brian Smith, Pat Tillman, Sergeant York, the countless ones that are no longer with us, do something bigger than yourself. Find something that betters the world around you. Every one of these people that have served did so because we wanted to make the world a little bit better. And I know, and I don't speak for them, but I'm sure we wonder if we really did matter, but we sure as hell tried. You don't have to serve in the Army, and I'm not asking you to give your life. But find something you believe in, something bigger than yourself. Give to it selflessly. Because we serve for you, and you should serve for others, because they are truly worth it. God bless our nation and our veterans. God bless all of you on this Veterans Day. Thank you for giving me your ear. And go Hatchets.
Thank you, Mr. Morrison. Lucas Morrison, TMS 7th grade student, will now read the story of TAPS.
The bugle call, known as taps, is thought to be a revision of a French bugle signal called tattoo. In July 1862, Union General Daniel Adams Butterfield recalled the tattoo music and hummed a version to his aide, who wrote it down in music form. He ordered the bugler to play this new call at the end of each day. The music was heard by other brigades who adopted this bugle call. It was even adopted by Confederate buglers. This music was made the official Army bugle call after the war, but was not given the name TAPS until 1874.
In the Armistice Day tradition of respect and memory for those who have given their lives for our country, I ask you to stand, turn around, and face the east for a moment of silence. Out of respect to all the fallen soldiers, there will be a 3-volley firing squad salute followed by taps. Please remain standing and hold your salute until taps is done. Please be seated.
We would like to thank all the 6th grade students for writing essays this year. Now I would like to introduce Mr. Tom Garrigan, Commander of the American Legion. Mr. Garrigan will present the awards to the winners of the 6th grade essay contest.
Thank you. I stand before you a broken man. The reason for that is that Colonel Morrison and I had a bet as to who could speak the longest. Sir, great words. Thank you for your service and your sacrifices. I was up to about 8 pages, and then my district commander said, "Don't you dare." So I thought, well, if I try to wing it, I'll be up here until lunchtime, which we might miss, actually. So I wrote down some notes because I figured that it won't take very long. But I think there are things that need to be said. One great thing about being the commander of American Legion Post 93 is that I'm surrounded by veterans and heroes. You don't have to go very far to find heroes that have served in the military. And now heroes, of course, are both men and women. There are heroes that right now surround all of you. On behalf of the veterans and the members of the veteran auxiliaries, I would like to express our thanks and gratitude to Tomahawk School District, Tomahawk Middle School, its faculty and its students, and the families and friends who are here today for this fabulous commemoration for those who served. We are very honored to be part of your program again. We sincerely thank you for this privilege. Relative to time, it's only been a short time, maybe 30, 40 years, maybe 60, 70 years for some of us, where we were sitting where you were sitting. We were young people, we were students, we didn't have any cares in the world. People just started talking about Vietnam. Our heroes were our fathers, our grandfathers, and even our great-grandfathers who served in World War I. I still remember those people. And then there were people that served in Korea. And then, of course, your history would tell you that we've always continued to serve almost every generation since. So it sounds like 60 or 70 years may be an awful long time. And it is. But we were young. We were like you. But our lives turned out to be a little different. But we were prepared for those lives by our parents, by our teachers, by our leaders. Sometimes what you have to worry about is homework. But I'll tell you, our country called upon us as it had for generations before. We stood tall. We took an oath to protect and defend her. And for many, it was a heck of a ride. For some, they never came back home. For others, it changed many people for the rest of their lives. But we stand here together with you today in a free America, and there is something to say about that. Thank you for your support. Thank you for this honor to be here today with you. I know, I got to get out of the way.
Will the following winners please come forward and stand by Mr. Garion? Third place, Jacob Betcher. Second place, Michael Vocek. And first place, Eli Scott.
Jacob? Congratulations. Good job. Michael? Also, congratulations. Good job. You must be Eli. Or don't you want to be? Congratulations. Great job. Let's
Eli Scott will now read his winning essay.
My pledge to our veterans. Veterans sacrificed their lives for our country. My pledge to honor veterans is that I want to thank them for what they did for us. We need to respect them. The three things I'm going to talk about are following the law, respecting veterans,